Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at noon starts now.
We are following several big developments this noon, starting in Washington, D.C., where Attorney General Pam Bondi is facing tough questions right now over her department's handling of the Epstein files. We're going to take you there live in just a few minutes. Plus, flags are flying at half-staff in British Columbia today after one of Canada's deadliest school shootings ever. We're also learning more about the victims and the shooter there. The FBI says tips are pouring in after it released these surveillance photos of a possible suspect outside Nancy Guthrie's home the night she went missing. We have all those details and the latest on that investigation coming up here at noon. Good to have you with us, everybody. I'm Jason Coulthard. Before we get to those headlines, let's get a check of the forecast as we kind of wander into some warmer temperatures, Ashley.
Well, if you're like me, you probably need to get a car wash, and this is really going to be a nice stretch to do that. Relatively dry stretch ahead, and we're not talking about bitterly cold temperatures, though we're still going to be close to the freezing mark for today. So we hold on to cloud cover. It's a little breezy. We'll be right around the freezing mark, but definitely going to get your money's worth if you get your car washed this afternoon. However, worth noting that the winds out of the northwest will make it feel like teens, that we will have that wind chill effect. So holding on to the chills for today, but we'll stay pretty seasonal to round out the week as far as 30-degree temperatures. We do have a warm up in sight, and it's going to be as early as this weekend as we rise right around 40, and we'll hold on to those 40s going into next week. We'll have a full breakdown coming up in your 7-day forecast.
Suspensions are in now for that brawl between the Pistons and Charlotte Hornets on Monday night. As expected, the Pistons' Isaiah Stewart got the worst of it for leaving the bench and being a repeat offender. He comes in at the end of this off the bench. He was suspended for 7 games. The Hornets' Moussa Diabate and Miles Bridges each suspended 4 games, and Jalen Duren will be out 2 games. Duren, by the way, will still be able to compete in this weekend's All-Star festivities despite that suspension. All right, let's get back to the Capitol in D.C., where Attorney General Pam Bondi is under fire right now. She's being grilled over how her department has handled the Jeffrey Epstein files and the release of all of those documents, including redactions that had been changed. The Justice Department taking some heat after releasing millions of documents, and some of those files including unredacted personal details and photos of victims. Bondi is standing her ground right now, saying they have redacted any information that slipped through by mistake.
I want to take a moment to acknowledge the Epstein survivors who are here today. I'm a career prosecutor, and despite what the ranking member said, I have spent my entire career fighting for victims, and I will continue to do so. I am deeply sorry for what any victim has been through, especially as a result of that monster. If you have any information to share with law enforcement about anyone who has hurt you or abused you, the FBI is waiting to hear from you.
The Attorney General is also facing questions about other Justice Department matters, including investigations into 2 fatal shootings in Minneapolis by federal officers there. We're listening in on today's hearing. We'll have a full recap on our website, clickondetroit.com. In Canada, 9 people are killed and dozens wounded after a shooting at a school and a home in British Columbia. The attacks were carried out yesterday afternoon in Tumbler Ridge, a small city in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies. Police responding to reports of an active shooter at a secondary school. They found 6 people dead there. A 7th person died on the way to the hospital. We don't know yet how many were children, but we do know the shooter is dead after taking her own life at the school following the attack.
We're still investigating the nature of all those injuries and the weapons that may or may not have been involved. We have the scene secured right now. We have investigators there to try to determine the nature of the extent of the injuries and what weapons may or may not have been involved.
And as of right now, no motive has been released for this shooting there in Canada. Now to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. Last night, authorities brought a man in for questioning in connection with her disappearance. They don't say that it's the same person on this videotape that was released because it came hours after these photos were released by the FBI, which shows someone tampering with Guthrie's security cameras. The New York Times and several other outlets say the man that was detained has been released. Alice Barr with the very latest from the Capitol.
I was the one that was pulled over at the traffic stop.
In rapid developments this morning, we're hearing from a man who says he was the one detained for questioning in the Nancy Guthrie investigation, and that he lives at the southern Arizona property state and federal authorities searched overnight. They would only say after the search that the investigation is ongoing. The man says he delivers packages in the Tucson area, but had nothing to do with Guthrie's disappearance.
All I know is that they show my in-law a picture of somebody wearing a mask or something, and they supposedly look like my eyes.
The Pima County Sheriff's Office earlier said they detained someone for questioning in the case in a Tuesday traffic stop south of Tucson, but would not comment on whether or not that person was released. It all comes after the FBI made public this disturbing video of a masked person wearing gloves and carrying a gun and a backpack outside Nancy Guthrie's home the night she went missing more than 10 days ago. The FBI director who visited the Tucson Command Center yesterday and shared this photo confirmed investigators are looking at persons of interest, but no one in law enforcement has said whether the person brought in for questioning is the same one in this doorbell camera video that the FBI had been working with private sector companies to recover.
And then go into their systems and actually excavate material that people would think would normally be deleted and no one would look for.
The images reveal what appears to be facial hair around the person's mouth and what looks like distinctive eyebrows through the mask's eye holes. You can also see the person's clothing and body movements as they tampered with and covered up the camera. Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie shared the video from her mother's doorbell camera, writing, "Someone out there recognizes this person. We believe she is still out there. Bring her home." As for how that video was recovered, a retired FBI agent told NBC News that even though Nancy Guthrie apparently didn't have a subscription to store the video, there are stops between the data going from the camera to the server where pieces of data can be left behind and potentially recovered. And it appears that's what happened here. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
All right, Alice. A major security scare at El Paso International Airport is now over. The threat of cartel drones forced a sudden shutdown of El Paso's airspace today. The FAA had initially announced a 10-day closure that would have grounded all flights at the airport. Officials, though, have not revealed how many drones were involved or what methods they used to stop them. The airspace around El Paso International now back open and flights are operating normally. A live look at the source of a current controversy. It's the Gordie Howe Bridge. We're learning more about what led up to President Trump threatening to keep that new border crossing from opening. The New York Times reporting the billionaire owner of the Ambassador Bridge, Matthew Maroon, met with the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick hours before that threat was posted. The Detroit Free Press is also reporting that Maroon made a $600,000 campaign contribution to Trump just before the 2020 election. The Maroon family has been fighting to stop the Gordie Howe from being built for several years. On Tuesday, the White House had its press briefing where Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had this to say about the bridge controversy and why the president is looking to block it from opening.
The fact that Canada will control what crosses the Gordie Howe Bridge and owns the land on both sides is unacceptable to the president. It's also unacceptable that more of this bridge isn't being built with more American-made materials, even more so than what President Barack Obama committed to with the Canadians at the time, at the start of the project. He also believes that the U.S. should own at least half of the bridge, have shared authority over what passes across it, and participate in the economic benefits generated by its use.
Just to clarify a couple of those points, former Republican governor of Michigan Rick Snyder wrote an op-ed in the Detroit News yesterday saying Michigan does own half of that bridge, so that part of that was incorrect. And having half of it built by American workers is only fair since the other half of the bridge is on the Canadian side. They deserve to have half of it built by Canadians. He also pointed out that Canada paid for all of it to be built, and that in itself is a great deal. Now, also on Tuesday, the mayor of Windsor spoke about this controversy. Here's what he had to say.
He talked about the $5 billion that it took to actually construct the bridge. The Michigan side paid for all of the connections to the interstate system, hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion on the Michigan side to do the connections that were required. And we jointly own this bridge together, the state of Michigan and the government of Canada. The costs of construction are going to be repaid through tolls, and it's going to take many years to repay that amount to make the project whole. But at the end of the day, once that's done, Michigan and Canada are going to be the owners of the bridge and split the proceeds. And so, listen, we have the busiest commercial border crossing. The auto industry, we're home to the auto capital of Canada. The Motor City, of course, just the other side of the border. The whole industry functions on a just-in-time basis. This bridge, being the most technologically efficient bridge, removes the friction from the border crossing and actually helps support thousands and thousands of jobs on the U.S. side in the auto and parts sector.
That's the mayor of Windsor there commenting as well. Click on Detroit.com. You can read how the rest of the Michigan lawmakers are reacting to this, both Republican and Democrat. The U.S. is looking at a strong January jobs report. The labor market adding 130,000 jobs last month, which is significantly more than the 55,000 additions predicted by economists. The healthcare sector saw the largest job growth, adding 137,000 jobs. Still, today's report also shows not nearly as many jobs were added in 2025 as a whole as thought. The labor market only gained 181,000 jobs all of last year, making it the worst year for hiring since 2020. Let's go to Milan and Cortina as the Olympics roll on there. Just past 6 o'clock in the evening there for day 5 of the Winter Olympics. Today's lineup packed with must-see events. You can watch it during the day on Local 4 or catch those replays in prime time. Right now, you can catch freestyle skiing, the women's moguls final, followed by the men's speed skating, the luge, more men's speed skating, snowboarding, and figure skating, both ice dance and the free dance. Keep an eye on the ice dancers with the Michigan connection, Madison Chalk and Evan Bates. They'll take center stage trying to get that second gold of the games. You can catch the whole schedule and all of the events on our website where we have a full list.